Yes, all dressed up and nowhere to go. It's BloodHorse Monday, hanging out with Sean Collins. My name's Louie Rabaut. A post-Tampa Bay Derby episode of the show, version of the show, if you will. You'll hear from Michael Banahan from Godolphin later in this episode, which I thoroughly enjoyed the interview. You never quite know, Sean, on these shows, and welcome in.
Yeah.
How long those interviews are going to go, how much you're going to get. He answered everything extensively that we asked
yes,
about.
He did.
So if you have any questions about an Oaks or a Derby contender with him, good news, you're going to hear about it. And the second thing was, you can ask certain questions with certain people. Hey, East Avenue, what happened here, whatever, and you get it. I thought a very succinct, meaningful answer, frankly. This guy.
Yeah.
So lots of good stuff coming up in this episode. Hopefully get you an update as well from the OBS sale. Speaking of which, man, we're hanging out with the OBS folks on this episode. Grade 1 winners, Grade 1 producers, legendary sires at the OBS March Sale of 2-year-olds in training. Success is found across the board. So in 2024 alone, graduates of the March Sale accounted for 62 stakes victories and 12 Breeders' Cup entrants. In the leading sire, in the breeding shed, the March Sale banner continues, to reign with graduate and world's leading sire into mischief. From precocious stars to enduring champions, the OBS is the 2-year-old source to the world. So come find your future star at the OBS March Sale from March 11 through 13. Obviously, that's tomorrow, my friend.
Yeah, we're gonna go down there and buy something.
You
got any money to lend us?
Looking at my house, no.
We should have asked Michael for some before we ended the interview. We could have went down and got ourselves a horse.
Could have talked a little poor Michael. It's like, no, I'm not buying you a horse. What planet is this? But you were in Tampa this weekend.
I was, yes.
I always like to ask this. You're a geek about this stuff, and I'm not trying to pick on you at all. But you're one of these guys that matters if you get to a track or not, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This is my 45th track that I've been to. My 41st thoroughbred track. I've been to 4 standard breds. So for me, it was just a bucket list. Make sure I got there once, check it off the list. Never been to the Tampa Bay Derby before. So fantastic.
Well, general overall take at Tampa.
I loved it. Good. Yeah. The track atmosphere. And I was there. I got there on Friday. So I got to see what a non-Tampa Bay Derby day looked like as well on a weekday. The place was packed.
Still fun.
Yeah. It's still fun. It was still packed. It was great atmosphere. I love the layout of the paddock area and how easy it was to kind of get up and see the horses. So overall, I had great thoughts about Tampa. I can't wait to go back. And you got to see Owen Almighty do the darn thing again. He's turning into one of these that I think all of us for some reason want to doubt. Yeah.
And I wonder if part of it isn't that they talked mile before instead of talking 10 furlongs. Let's watch the replay here of the Tampa Bay Derby. Our guy, of course, Jason Beam on the call.
They're racing together out wide. Chancellor McPatrick going to need a seam. Owen Almighty brings him around to the top of the stretch. Brodeur, Patch Adams 3 wide. Filoso on the far outside. Chancellor McPatrick still waiting for that seam to arrive as Owen Almighty turns him in. Owen Almighty to the 8th pole, 2 lengths in front of Chancellor McPatrick, who tries to come after that one, but Owen Almighty's 3 lengths in front. Chancellor McPatrick, a final 16th. Hill Road up the inside. It's Owen Almighty in front. Owen Almighty by 4. Owen, the all-powerful Owen Almighty, wins the Tampa Bay Derby. Chancellor McPatrick was second, third went to Hill Road, Patch Adams 4th.
An interesting one because I think in route races, Sean, we have a bias in horse racing against horses that can just get the lead and keep the lead.
Yeah.
Now, some of the very best that we've ever had, especially in the last, let's say 10 or 15 years, have been get the lead, keep the lead. Authentic stands out. Justify, of course. Like we've had horses like this, a Serengeti Empress, if you want to go back to an Oaks race, that kind of thing, where
just
people
get out front and sail.
Yeah. And, we've even heard, a trainer like Bob Baffert say before, this comes from my quarter horse background, kind of just get the lead and everybody can come catch me if you want to. He does that exceptionally well. And it is an apparent knock on him from other people.
Yeah.
And not from me. I just want to start the conversation that
way. I think I've said on the show a couple times that one of my, hesitations on a horse like Citizen Bowl is we haven't seen him sit off the lead. So, there's perfect proving your point right there.
Right. And so I wonder at what point does a horse do something right enough times that we just admit that he's doing a good job?
I think we're at that point with Owen Almighty.
Okay, I do too.
Yeah. I think, it's fun because I was able to watch him grow last year at Churchill Downs. We saw him, kind of turn into a stakes winner early on. And then he ran second the Iroquois, kind of disappeared for a little bit because he was out with an illness, and to see him come back now, he's run 3 really good races at Tampa Bay Downs down there. And the first one, there was a question because he got disqualified from the win, but he was clearly the best horse in that race.
The 7 furlong Pasco.
Yeah, the 7 furlong Pasco. And then I think the last race with John Hancock, when people saw him kind of take the lead for that brief moment and then lose it in the final strides, everybody kind of looked at that like, oh, he's hitting the wall.
Yep.
This is the limitation of his distance. I mean, it didn't look to me the way he ran on Saturday that there was going to be any problem if that race was a 1.125 or anything like that.
Well, and it was much faster than domestic products win last year.
Yeah.
Right. So the splits were considerably faster. Now he still gets to run 48 flat for the half mile, but I don't know, in a prep in early March, are we going to hold that against the horse? I'm not personally going to.
I never really hold the early fractions against a horse because I mean, nobody was up there pushing him. So why go faster? You know, you're just going to go as slow as they let you go to save as much energy for the end. He saved a lot of energy for the end. And I know his final splits in the race, which if you read BloodHorse's recap from our very own Byron King, a good friend of ours, he pointed out that the final 5/16ths, he went 29.76, the final 16th in 5.84 for a horse that a lot of people are saying is not going to be able to run a 1.116 going into that race. It's a pretty good fractions no matter what the pace is. He finished up very well.
I think you and I both left him on our tickets because we think 1.116 is a good distance for him.
I think so, yeah.
I am of the opinion that I do wonder about 10 furlongs.
Mm-hmm.
But I have news for you. I wonder that about 98% of 3-year-olds.
Yeah.
Right? That it isn't some sort of a knock on the horse at all, or that he can't be a great 1.116, 1.125. We see lots of those level of races at some or one-turn mile. I don't know. Like so many of those races now at a Saratoga, at a Churchill Downs, where horses who are of that ilk are going to be able to find spots.
Yeah.
And so I think going forward, and I know we need to concentrate on the Derby right now, but going forward, I think there's plenty of spots for him.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's going to be in a great spot.
He's got a well of options right now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Especially if he can keep his health.
Yeah. Sure. And, you know, right after the race, well, before the race, even Brian Lynch said, no matter what happens in this race, we're probably looking at the Pat Day Mile with him. Obviously, he won. You know, I had him in my exacta plays. I thought there was a chance he could win, but he won better than I was expecting him to win. I think that
part is very true.
So now you have to look at it and be like, all right, let's start thinking about the Derby. Let's let that enter the mind a little bit more. Cause I mean, he looked really good. He looked really strong down the lane.
All right. So finishing second in that Tampa Bay Derby and finishing in that group is a Chancer McPatrick. Okay. And it was his debut. We heard from our colleague, Frank Angst, a couple of weeks ago, how important it is if you want to win the Derby to be very good on debut as a 3-year-old. Okay. Now we're talking about a horse making a March debut against a horse in Owen Almighty that's already well into the form cycle, is well into, you know, all of the, you know, his fitness is unquestionable at this point. Chancer moving forward, what do you expect to see out of him?
Well, the thing I really liked about his performance on Saturday was he sat closer to the pace this time.
Okay.
He's been a deep closer in his races as a 2-year-old. I liked seeing that he was up close to the pace. I thought he maybe kind of had to wait a little bit longer than they were wanting to around the far turn for some space to open up. Now, obviously, he wasn't able to reel in Owen Almighty, but after the race, you know, he kind of caught up to him pretty quick in the gallop out. And I don't know if that was just, you know, he was finally starting to kick into gear as they got to the wire, and that's a good sign moving forward in distance, or if that was just, you know, Owen Almighty's being asked to stop and he slowed down, but he did get caught up to him pretty quick. So I thought for a 3-year-old debut without getting the victory, that was good for him. He showed a different dimension. He was able to sit off the pace, and I thought he finished up strong. So I was a little skeptical on him going into the race. I feel a little bit better about his possibilities going forward.
Who would you rather have amongst the second place finishers from recent races? Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Chancer or the second place finisher in the Fountain of Youth in River Thames? I would lean River Thames, I think.
I'm going to lean Chancer McPatrick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chancer or an East Avenue at this point? Because I think both of them didn't win on debut as 3-year-olds. We think a lot of them as 2-year-olds, right? A lot of talent. You know, you'll hear about East Avenue later with our interview with Michael Banahan. But between those two, where would you go? Because I would go Chancer there.
I would go Chancer there too, just because of the Risen Star performance. The fact that there is no necessarily obvious reason as to why he ended up running the way that he did in the Risen Star East Avenue. I'm going to give that to Chancer McPatrick. You know, you're looking at 2 horses that were very good as 2-year-olds. One of them came back pretty well in the first start at 3. One of them didn't. So I've got to side with Chancer right now until we see what East Avenue does next.
It's a fascinating dilemma for sure. All right. Well, yeah, it was a great race down there. Appreciate Jason Beam and all the folks down there. All right, so there was another race this weekend. It was not a Triple Crown prep. It's not an Oaks prep. Despite what you may have read, only 3-year-olds can run in the Oaks and the Derby, but a 4-year-old ran on Saturday. And her name is Thorpedo Anna. You and I both unabashed fans of this horse. Here's her return in the Azeri at Oaklawn Park. Our friend Matt Dinnerman on the call.
As they round the forward turn, Thorpedo Anna still in front of neck, free like a girl, attempting to make a race of it. Thorpedo Anna coming to the top of the lane, a neck in front of free like a girl who's right there. Thorpedo Anna off the turn, free like a girl, still trying in second. Thorpedo Anna, Brian Hernandez Jr. asks her to go, and just look at her go. She hits the furlong pole, accelerates, opens up 3. Thorpedo Anna just gliding over the Oaklawn soil today, and she is back, and she is back in business. Thorpedo Anna wrapped up to win the Azeri, kicking off her 4-year-old season in style.
4-year-old season in style does Thorpedo Anna. And I wanted to put this in, Sean, because I think last year at this time, we were watching a horse in Idiomatic and wondering who in the heck is actually going to catch this filly. Yeah. And we kind of always assume, I think we get static in horse racing when we don't need to, which is we forget, because so many of our great horses run off to breed or whatever after their 3-year-old seasons. Horses get better as they get older sometimes. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. And so we forget these parts. We saw like a Cavalieri, for example, out west, win for Bob Baffert in the Beholder Mile, that kind of stuff. She might be it. I don't know, Sean. I don't want to, put some kind of expectation on Cavalieri to catch a Thorpedo Anna by any stretch. But do you think there is a horse out there, maybe in the 3-year-old ranks, that could be the not next Thorpedo Anna, but at least push her this year?
It'll be interesting to see, because right now, when you're thinking about who's going to be that kind of that pace pressure for her,
right,
I'm not really seeing it. When I think about the 3-year-olds who might develop into being that challenger, I think about Good Cheer, who's on one of the leaders for the Kentucky Oaks trail right now, but she usually sits off the pace. So, she's not really going to be able to kind of take it to Thorpedo Anna early in the race. This was an interesting race because Wild Bell Hillary, who is probably going to be her pace rider, so right now, as far as the older horses, as you're marching towards the Apple Blossom, as you're marching beyond that to races like the La Troyenne, which might be too quick a turnaround, but the Ogden Phipps at Saratoga after that, right now, I don't really see anything on the older horse side that would make me think Thorpedo Anna is vulnerable here.
I do wonder if we'll see a Cavalieri in the Apple Blossom, just the purse alone.
Yeah.
Right. You get $1 million together, people are going to show up, right?
And
so
Baffert loves going to Oaklawn.
He does love going to Oaklawn, so it wouldn't be surprising to see her there. I do wonder if it won't be from the 3-year-old crop, because I think we always assume the older crop, especially on the filly and mare side, because we do get more Thorpedo Annas on that side than we do gun runners on the colt side, for example. I do wonder if we underrate that 3-year-old filly crop every year, just assuming they're not going to get there. And they do, right? They always do, right? So it's always the case that you have to watch out for them by the time we get to the distaff. Sean Collins, Louie Bro, hanging out with you. BloodHorse Monday, our reaction segment there, presented by OBS Sales, at OBS Sales, if you want to go find them on the socials as well. Up next is Michael Banahan. He's with Godolphin, talks us through all of his Derby runners. We look back on an Oaks, a great Oaks day. We ask him about that Oaks Derby double as well. That's coming up next here on BloodHorse Monday. All right, it's time for our weekly ownership and breeding and all of the great talk that we get to do with the different owners and breeders around the country. It's time for that segment here on BloodHorse Monday. Really pleased to welcome in Michael Banahan from Godolphin here in Lexington. I was saying right before we got to talk with Michael, I hope he's in Lexington, because goodness, we finally got some sunshine in the Commonwealth. Michael, how are you?
Doing great. Thank you very much. And thanks for having me on. And it is certainly nice to get into March and get through this bad winter we've had. So it's all blue skies ahead.
Yeah, so Michael joins us, of course, from Godolphin. Plenty to get into. And look, I think the easiest way to start is just, hey, let's get right on that Derby trail. I know it's something that is certainly a point of emphasis for your program, your breeding program. In general, there were questions aplenty when I was talking with Brian Nadeau down there at Gulfstream Park ahead of the Fountain of Youth. Hey, which Sovereignty is going to show up in this race off the layoff? We don't know if he's going to want to close into this short stretch at Gulfstream Park, all those kinds of things. What does this tell you about his talent, that he was able to overcome all of those things? And does it make you excited about his future?
Absolutely. And we didn't know either. And he hadn't had maybe a straight run through the winter time, and ended up with a little bit of a fever just when we're getting started with him. And but I got over that, and probably was just ready to run. And we would have loved to have got him going a bit earlier, but that's where he put us. And we were just hoping for a good run out of him and see him finish up and pass some horses out and galloping strong to the wire. And he did all those things, and the bonus was winning the race as well. So look, we've always felt he has a lot of talent, and it was great to see him be able to do that first time out against some horses that have run already down there in the meet. And we feel like, there's a lot of improvement still in the horse. And hopefully if we get a good run between now and the next couple of months, should see us in pretty good shape.
And definitely, like, when you're looking at the Kentucky Derby going forward, he's got the right running style to make that 1.25 mile run coming from the back like that. Pedigree wise, he's pretty well suited for 1.25 mile. He's by leading stallion Into Mischief, who we talked about a couple weeks ago, definitely has a couple good horses on the Derby trail. He's out of the Bernardini mare. Bernardini, very important to you guys at Godolphin, standing at Darley. So that's got to make you feel pretty good about your chances, knowing the pedigree and the running style, and just seeing him coming off the layoff like that, right?
Yeah, and probably as much as anything else, physically, he's a beautiful horse. He's big, he's strong. He won't get intimidated or bullied anyway. And the other great thing about him is his temperament. He has a wonderful temperament. At first down at Gulfstream for the Fountain of Youth, he stood in there like a older horse in the saddling area, and we know it's not made for horses. It's a tight area in there, and he was very, very good and took it all in a stride. And so we feel like, for a lot, he covers everything. He covers the physically what he looks like, temperament wise, ability wise, pedigree wise. So he has a lot going for him, and we think we think we're in great shape with him. And it's everything has to happen sort of quickly for him. It's 4 weeks back to the Florida Derby, in which more than likely that's where we're going to end up. And probably a little bit tight, but that's what it is. And if you want to make the Derby, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, Michael Banahan joining us here on BloodHorse Monday from Godolphin. We're talking about Sovereignty, the top, I say for right now, at least the top on the Derby trail for the Godolphin folks over there. Look, he's already won at Churchill Downs. And from your perspective, Michael, is that an important part of the piece here of the puzzle, trying to figure out whether he's going to be, capable once we get to the Derby? Obviously, the 10 furlongs and asking the distance questions stands on its own. And we've seen many horses have never run at Churchill come out of that Florida Derby route and be just fine. But the fact that he has won at Churchill, does that add to your confidence with him?
Makes us a little bit more comfortable anyway, that's for sure. And when the opportunity came up to run there, and he hadn't broken his maiden at that stage, but we sort of considered his race in New York at Aqueduct as good as a win. He made up like 4 lengths in the last furlong against a really nice horse of that came back yesterday and won at Gulfstream. And so we felt, let's take that as a win and throw him straight into a stake race. It was Dan Pride who first suggested maybe looking at that, and it made a whole lot of sense. Run at Churchill, we wanted to get him around 2 turns. It was difficult to do that up in New York, and we felt it would, you run back in another nice maiden, it was probably going to be just as strong. So we were keen to do that with him, and to run him at Churchill as well was a perfect spot to try and break his maiden, and we figured we could give him a little bit of time in the winter then by doing that, and which all came together. And I think anytime you have a race over the track that holds either the Oaks or the Derby, it's nice to have that under your belt already. And he loved it there, and we saw a great performance in the street sense, and looked like he enjoyed it there, and looked like he was maybe learning and maturing a little bit, because he was a little bit closer to the pace as well. And we're excited to hopefully go back there in May.
It was one of those races where I thought I was the smart guy picking the maiden, and then all of us picked the maiden.
Exactly.
Oh, by the way, we were all right. So yeah, there you are.
Yeah.
But that's a big move to make. Maybe sometimes that could be a little risky, but in your corner you have the Hall of Fame trainer Bill Mott. So how does he fit this horse and kind of fit into this puzzle?
Well, as we all know, Bill is an extremely good horseman. He's the youngest person ever to go into the Hall of Fame, and a lot of great trainers in America that have never done that at his age. And his horsemanship skills are second to none. His intuition around his horses is great. He's patient, and he'll always just do the right thing by the horse as well. So if Bill is happy to go forward with a horse, gives us confidence, but we'll give him the latitude if he's not happy with one, that we're not going to press on unless it's the right thing to do with a horse as well. So I think we're very fortunate to have a trainer in our corner as good as Bill Mott is, and I think he can suit a lot of different horses. So not saying that this horse wouldn't go well with any other trainer as well, but he is I think he's just a very good trainer with any type of horse.
Michael Banahan with us from Godolphin. Look, Sovereignty, we know where he's going to be for Saturday in May if he's healthy. You've got some other prospects, though, looking to qualify for the Kentucky Derby. Poster stands out amongst them. Obviously wins the Remsen. We saw that be an incredible predictor race last year with Sierra Leone, with Dornick, and with Domestic Product coming out of that race. Look, suffers his first career loss in the Sam F. Davis. But look, still, I think that running style, up front, suitable for, these two-turn races where if you can rate on the front and be part of that early pace, certainly got a great shot to win those. What did you take away from the Sam F. Davis performance, and what's his next step, you think?
Well, as you alluded to earlier on, we haven't had the best winter in Kentucky, and we were going off history over the last few years where they've been pretty mild. And we lost very, very little training time. So this year, obviously, we had two horses that we kept in Kentucky trying to go down that route, and we did have to navigate our way through the weather. But for him, I thought he ran a very good race against. There was a bias down in Tampa that day. The two horses on the lead ran around there to the winning line. There wasn't much catching them. The horse was second, came back and won very well in the Tampa Bay Derby. So that gives a lot of credence to the race itself, I believe. Poster was running, he was running against, as I said, the bias that day. And he was probably one of the only horses finishing up, and ran well and got a little bit tired at the end, which you'd expect. And I think first time out on the Tampa surface can do that a little bit as well. So we were encouraged by his run that day and thought it would put us in a good spot. And so we're just trying to figure out, where the next best place would be for him to get to the first Saturday in May. And there was a lot of different options out there. And we thought about maybe staying down at Tampa for the Tampa Bay Derby last week, but we weren't maybe enthralled about the timing because there's a long time between last Saturday and the first Saturday in May, and then you have to go back again and try and run again, which didn't really feel like that was the right thing to do, not for him anyway. So we ended up go back to base where he's trained all year in Turfway, and we look at trying to Jeff Ruby, and I think he's better on the dirt really, but I think it's a good spot to for his next start. You got 6 weeks between the Sam Davis and then another 6 weeks to the Derby if it all works out. It's great timing for him.
And he's got Owen Hardy in his corner as the trainer here, and who also trained First Resort. You alluded to having the two earlier. Unfortunately, First Resort's not going to make the Derby this year. But, you know, he's kind of a newer name on the Derby trail. Just kind of tell us a little bit about how he came to work with Godolphin and just the fact that he's got two really good horses that have performed on this trail this year.
Well, Owen probably has as much experience going down the Derby trail than anyone has, because he was assistant trainer to Bob Baffert when he started out, and he was there with Cavalier and Silver Charm and Real Quiet and all those horses. And as the Baffert style would be, I think Owen travelled with those horses in their prep races and stayed with them all the way through the Triple Crown. So he was the man on the ground with a lot of those horses. So I think he has a pretty good bank of knowledge on what to do with them and how to get them there. And, you know, he's had a runner, maybe a couple of runners in the Derby on his own. I remember he had Colonel John in there, I think, before. But so he's been down that road. If he has a horse good enough, he can certainly get them there. You know, he's a talented trainer as well, given the right opportunities. He's won a Breeders' Cup race for us with Tempera years ago at Belmont. He's won a Travers, won a Dubai World Cup. So I don't think we're going to miss anything out with Owen and his experience as well. And hopefully the horse will be good enough, and we get a nice run from in the Jeff Ruby, and we go on to the next day. And as I said, I think he'll be better getting back on dirt again. But this we felt was the right opportunity for him, maybe to get to the first Saturday in May.
So we'll see him in the Ruby in about 10 days then? Is that about right?
That's the plan at the moment anyway. So hopefully, and he's training up there. So that's the plan at the moment. Yeah. Subject to change, obviously.
Yeah, right. The horses always tell you what they want to do. Michael Banahan from Godolphin with us here on BloodHorse Monday. Louie Rabaut, Sean Collins hanging out with you. Look, this is an outfit that wins Eclipse Award after Eclipse Award, but that Derby win is a different thing altogether. There's only one of those a year for sure. All the accolades, all the trophies and all the things, where would the Derby rank, you think, for Sheikh Mohammed, for all the folks there at Godolphin?
Well, I think for the Godolphin organization, and obviously founded by Sheikh Mohammed, loves to participate in globally high-end races, be it an Epsom Derby, Dubai World Cup, Melbourne Cup, Breeders' Cups, Derby. So they all, and the Derby is one of the races that we haven't got that notch on the belt yet. Would love to put that right. It's not the be all and end all, but when you have 3-year-olds that look like they're talented enough, that's your first stepping stone, is to try and get to the Derby. And obviously we'd love to try and win that. We were there with Essential Quality a couple of years ago. He was favourite in the race. We thought he was the best horse in the race going into it. We thought he was the best horse coming out of it, but he didn't win. And so it was pretty disappointing all around that day. So hopefully one of these guys can jump up this year. And, we mentioned 2 of them, but I certainly wouldn't like to be going in there without maybe East Avenue in the mix as well. He's a talented horse. We're not too sure what happened in the Risen Star.
I was just going to ask you about him, actually. So he comes back in the Risen Star. It does, whatever fluffle you want to make about your first start as a 3-year-old, that wasn't terribly encouraging if you looked at it on its own. But do you have a sense he's going to run better next time out?
Well, we'd hope so. We very much hope so. Look, we don't really know why he didn't run well that day. Trained super all winter long. Did everything that Brendan wanted him to do. So it was a really disappointing effort from him, for sure. No stone has been unturned. He seems in great shape. He's come back, worked well, healthy, in great shape. So we're going to go again. More than likely, we look at maybe the Bluegrass. He's won his Grade 1 there already.
Yep.
He won over the track. Decided maybe that's the thing to do. Go back to where we've been successful already, sure, and give him another go. And quietly confident that he's going to be able to come back and show how good he is, because we all feel he's very talented. Brendan does, his team does. Tyler thinks that he's exceptionally talented horse, and he's ridden a lot of the best ones over the last few years. So we're going to give him, as long as everything goes well between now and early April, we'll give him a shot to go back in there again and see what he can do.
It's good to hear that it's not a physical issue, that it purely just was maybe a bad day. It's good to hear, at least.
Yeah, and
too much time on Bourbon Street the night before, New Orleans does that to people.
Maybe so, but we'll get him back up here to the Bluegrass in a few weeks once Keeneland opens up again, and get him back here and see if we can rectify that last start. So we know we have, the Breeders' Cup was what happened, and now there isn't a start, so we've 2 marks against us. So we have to get him back to where he was last fall in the futurity, and give him an opportunity anyway. I think the horse deserves that to go back out there and see what he can do.
Well, you mentioned Tyler Gaffleone and Brendan Walsh being involved with him. They were also involved with your Kentucky Oaks winner 2 years ago, Pretty Mischievous, when she clinched that victory for you guys. You have another filly, a very good filly that's on the Kentucky Oaks Trail this year, and Good Cheer, trained by Brad Cox. Just what are your thoughts on her? She's been very impressive, 5 for 5. She looks like she's probably the leading filly at this point going into the Kentucky Oaks. What's next for her, and how confident does she make you feel a couple weeks out now?
Sean's very confident for you.
Yes, very confident.
Well, I can understand where that confidence comes from, and I don't think it's unfounded. She's been very, very impressive. Every time she gets onto the racetrack, she just blows you away with how professional she is, and any little different circumstances, she can take care of them very readily. She will hopefully turn up in the Fairgrounds Oaks. She was impressive, obviously, in the Rachel Alexandra, so there's no point in getting too funny about where we want to run her, and just run back at the racetrack that she's performed well at. She stayed down there, and hopefully we'll have a nice performance. Now, Pretty Mischievous did get beaten in the Fairgrounds Oaks before we went on to the Oaks, the Kentucky Oaks, so we know that could happen, but I wouldn't trade her for anyone else. She's just an unbelievably professional, straightforward filly. Brad has the ultimate confidence in her, and I know he has several other fillies in his barn as well. They're pretty nice as well. But we feel we're in a great spot with our filly, and would not trade her with anyone else. And looking forward to trying to get our second Oaks down with her. And I think an undefeated filly. She's by her own stallion, Medaglia d'Oro. It'd be great to be able to go up there and be in with a favourites chance to try and win the Lilies again.
All right, so look, we watched a guy who grew up not too terribly far from where you're sitting in Kenny McPeak pull off the Oaks Derby double last year. I want you to go ahead and just guarantee a Good Cheer Sovereignty double right now. Just go ahead, or East Avenue, whatever you got to do. That's fine, Michael. Just go ahead and do that for me.
I'm not going to be as bold as Kenny McPeak and predict those type of things. We're very grateful that we're in a position with some very nice 3-year-olds, both colts and fillies, and the opportunity to get there is all we can ask for. And may the best horse win on the day, and we know what it's like. We've been there before, and the competition is what we want to get there to do, and we'll just be very grateful if we have horses in both races turn up on the day with good chances. And they, if they don't look like they belong, they won't even be there on the day anyway. So we're not in the business of going in there just to have a runner on the day. If we have horses in either of the races, and hopefully both of them, they're going to be, we think anyway, in there with live chances.
Well, he's Michael Banahan. He's with Godolphin. I want to get you out of here on this. So we see your name in the Eclipse Awards as far as your outfit, owner, breeder, those things. And, it's multiple years in a row, almost a half decade, I think. And just how much pride do you take every year when you hear that name? Because I think so many people around the industry, maybe sit in this chair, they see the blue silks, and they forget there's people involved in this decision-making process. Yeah. How many, you talk about Owen Hardy, you talk about Bill Mott, you talk about Brad Cox, all the moving pieces for an operation like yours. How much pride do you get when your name comes up in January?
Oh, look, it's absolutely unbelievable. And, you know, they're the people on the front end. We have an unbelievable team back on the farms here in Kentucky, at Jonabell and at Gainsborough and Stoner Side and Raceland Farm as well, that we have our yearlings on. And so we have a big team that take an awful lot of pride when the Eclipse Award vote comes out in our favour. And to be able to win leading owner or leading breeder means that we just don't have one horse. We have a multitude of very nice horses. So that means the world to us as well. And if we have a leading fancy in there, as we did last year with Immersive, or the year before with Cody's Wish, or whoever that might be, our Essential Quality before that, having those cherries on the top being, you know, individual Eclipse Award winners as well is fantastic. But the collective of having, you know, multiple graded winners through the year is so special for all the team. That we have great racing here in Kentucky at Keeneland, at Churchill, and they can actively come out and support our horses at the racetrack is phenomenal. And we've no bigger supporters than our employees that work on the farm here with us as well. So they're extra special. They're very difficult to do. We appreciate them when they come along. We've many barren years as well. So we understand how difficult it is to do it, and it's great when it happens, and we don't take it for granted. That's for sure. And it's a great reflection on you know, Dubai and Godolphin founder Sheikh Mohammed, to put us into position where we have a great broodmare band, a great roster of stallions as well, and the opportunity to breed to other stallions as well, to be able to put these horses in the position for him to enjoy them on the racetrack, which is what he loves to do. And be it in Europe or America or wherever it might be, he gets a great kick out of his horses performing on the top stage.
Well, he's Michael Banahan. He is with Godolphin, hopefully standing for his sake, at least in the winner's circle in a couple days up there at Turfway Park with Poster, punching his ticket to the Kentucky Derby, add one alongside Sovereignty. Michael, safe trips for everybody coming up here. Safe trips for you wherever you're heading to watch these horses. And thanks so much for joining us here on BloodHorse Monday.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Michael. Be well.
Bye.
Michael Banahan from we're from BloodHorse. He's from Godolphin. Easy for me to say, Sean. And really interesting stuff as far as where they're placing horses, as far as trainers, the trust they have based on previous experience. And I love once in a while when someone comes on and just says, we don't know what happened in that race, because we all watched East Avenue. We're like, what's going on here? Right. And so appreciate that it was just, you know, I've had bad days doing this job before, right? Yeah. You've had bad articles that you've written, something like this, right? And so certainly that's an opportunity. Anything else that really stood out to you? I do appreciate, because I try to stress this in other shows I do as well. I think people see that Godolphin name and they forget there's people.
Yeah. I'm glad you pointed that out at the end, because there's a lot of, you know, little pieces to the machine that make it work and make it flow. And when you have an organization like Godolphin that's got so many horses across the country, you mentioned, you know, the different trainers. Every horse we talked about today, the 4 big ones we talked about, all had different trainers.
Right.
And so that shows you, you know, from that perspective, the trainer side, but everybody that works at the farm, everybody that's involved with the decision making as far as where to run the horses, who to send them to, you know, the breeding aspect of it, they're really top notch at every aspect of the game.
How complicated it is to know your own broodmare set, and then your own stallions, and then to look at stallions outside of that. I mean, there's a lot involved in this. And so, I appreciate Michael jumping on to talk about all those things. There's so many moving parts for an operation that size. I mean, goodness gracious, but to consistently place horses in the rights, it's stunning, the hit rate for them. I mean, it really is. So
when you got 3 horses heading towards the Kentucky Derby, they're all going to be in different races, it sounds like, for that final prep, and you're going to go in. If they go in and perform the way that Michael hopes and the way that we're expecting them to kind of bounce back, you're looking at, you know, they're going to have 3 legitimate shots to win the Kentucky Derby.
Rank them right now. Those 3 from Godolphin. We're going Sovereignty, East Avenue, and Poster.
I think I'd rank them in the order you just mentioned. But East Avenue, if he comes back in the Bluegrass and he runs the way that he did in the Breeders' Futurity, I think he shoots up to the top of the list there.
I think Sovereignty's at the top, and I think that isn't really terribly debatable. The Jockey Club showing, and then, of course, most recently, I'm really torn on the second one because East Avenue was just such an egg last time, unfortunately, right? It was just so much not him. It didn't look like him, right? And so I worry so much when you see those kinds of things. But again, hopefully just that was the day. Get him out of there. Get him back to a track he's won at. I think that's such a smart move as well. Yeah. So appreciate Michael joining us there from Godolphin. All right. And from Godolphin talk to OBS talk, of course, with our friends down at the OBS sales. We've seen some weather issues, Sean, around the OBS sales. This isn't like the NFL Combine where we're inside the dome in Indianapolis.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't it be nice if we had a big old dome for these things? So obviously wind conditions affecting some of the times early in the meet. We saw them decrease as soon as the wind went away. I'm sure people are making their adjustments and different things. Any initial sort of reactions to what we've seen at the OBS sale?
Well, it's interesting for, the consigners, kind of how they adjust to this, and for the buyers as well, how they're going to adjust to the weather. They had to cancel the first day of the Undertech show, and now the start time for the first day of the sale tomorrow is going to get pushed back a little bit, just to give them some extra time to kind of look over horses, since they did have a little bit of a delay there. So it'll be interesting to hear. We're going to hear from Olivia Newman, our BloodHorse sales director, here in a little bit, and kind of give us a little insight through her interview on kind of how things are going down there at OBS.
We got to come up with a great nickname for Olivia on this show, because she is the Mel Kiper Jr. of BloodHorse, but I don't want to just lean into that. You know what I mean? There's other better draft names and all this kind of stuff.
We'll come up to something.
I feel like we've got a minute to figure those things out, but here is Olivia. She is in and she is interviewing OBS President Tom Ventura. A reminder, the Grade 1 winners, Grade 1 producers, and legendary sires at the OBS March Sale of 2-year-olds in training. Success is found across the board. In 2024, graduates of the March Sale accounted for 62 stakes victories and 12 Breeders' Cup entrants. Just incredible. In the breeding shed, the March Sale banner continues to reign with graduate and world's leading sire into mischief. From precocious stars to enduring champions, OBS is the 2-year-old source to the world. So come find your future star at the OBS March Sale, March 11th through 13th. A little bit of a delay tomorrow, but we'll get you all 3 days down there at the OBS Sale. Appreciate them very much. Here's Olivia Newman talking with their president, Tom Ventura, about that sale.
I'm here with Tom Ventura, president of OBS. Thanks for joining me. I just wanted to get your thoughts going into the 2-year-old sale season.
Well, thank you for having me. The 2-year-old sales are exciting time of year, because now we get to see the horses on the racetrack, especially those young sires, that really get a chance to see how they move on the track after looking at them as yearlings. And it's a lot of work has been put in to get to this point. The consigners are anxious and to show their wares, and we're excited to be doing this. This is something that has been very successful along the way, and we keep kind of tweaking things until we get it better and better as we move on.
Are there any first crop sires that have stood out to you?
Yeah, that's always a tough question for me, because I hate to, start picking out sires and missing some obvious horses. So it's an excellent first group of horses that are showing here that were very popular as yearlings. And I know, there's a lot of Yaupons in the sale. Some of them perform very well. Charlatans, Essential Quality. There's a number of them, and I know I'm going to make somebody mad by missing somebody, but I think it's a very good group of first crop sires, and I think it translated on the racetrack. They were very successful as horses on the track, as racehorses, and now we're going to see what they look like at the racetrack here shortly, their offspring.
Any buzz horses that have stood out to you? I know I saw a full brother to Cogburn this morning, who's an OBS graduate.
Yeah, Cogburn, certainly has been in the limelight a lot, and deservedly so. And he, had a great run last year. His full brother is very nice, and looks like he'll be one of the top horses here. There's a very deep group of top-end horses. There's a gun runner over at Eddie Woods that worked in 9 and 3 that looks tremendous at the end of the shank. So I think some very high-end horses. There will be, some super athletic horses that may be by, stallions that are slightly below the radar, but have shown themselves well on the track and at the barn. So those are the horses that you don't get surprised by, but on paper they might not look like they're going to bring that kind of money.
The start time is pushed back to 1 tomorrow. The weather has been a little uncooperative, and with the undertax show being consolidated to 3 days, does this just give buyers a little more time to look at the horses tomorrow?
Yeah, it's something that, unfortunately, in the horse business, you need to be adaptive to the situation. And with the 2-year-old sales, with the under-track component of the sales process, we had to make a decision, and I think it was a good decision to move 1 day back and consolidate it into 3 days. It was unfortunate that first day the wind was still pretty steady throughout the day, and it was going in the wrong direction. As far as the consigners are concerned, it was a headwind, and I don't think the horses were compromised in terms of running. Their times were probably compromised, certainly compromised because of the headwinds that were pretty steady throughout. But I think it was a good 3 days. But because of that, usually when we had a 4-day under tax show, the consigners had the opportunity to show their horses late in the afternoon, and some of the buyers had a chance to look at some horses and get through some of the horses. And it's another part going through the videos as well, to get through the videos and kind of sorting through and see what they like and don't like. And then after the under tax show, we had some rain each day, and rain this morning, the kind of limited showing in the barn. So pushing back the start day, just the first day to 1 o'clock, gives everybody a chance to kind of regroup, get organized, and give everybody a fair chance on both sides of the equation. The buyers have a chance to do their homework, and then the sellers have a chance to show their horses. And 1 o'clock start will probably end around 7 o'clock. Daylight savings, we have no concern about, being dark, and you still get out of here at a reasonable time. And I think it works well for everybody, and we only heard positive feedback from that.
You've been with OBS for 30 years, since 1994. How has the company progressed, and what are some goals for the future?
So, back in 1974, when they were organizing, the first sale was in January, I believe. It was a way to get the horses marketed on a local basis, and a group of forward-looking horsemen got together, organized the company, and started with 6 barns and a 5/8 mile racetrack, and started with goals of getting horses sold to different, in a different manner, just because they had horses maybe didn't stack up on a pedigree level with some of the other horses. So the 2-year-old and training sales became very popular to showcase the horse on the track, and another piece of information for the buyers to have. So they, the pioneers of the 2-year-old sales were right here in Ocala, and got that up and running. And shortly thereafter, the barns were increased, and today we're sitting with 29 barns and room for 1,200 horses. We have 2 racetracks. We have a 5/8 mile dirt track, and we have a 1 mile track that Thorpedo is now managing. And that track, honestly, one of the best things we ever did was install that surface. It was Safe Track initially, back in 2007 or 8. I think 8 was the first sale that we had that track. And the one thing that track allows us to do is deal with the weather that we've had. So when it rains, the track has tremendous drainage capability, and there's, the sloppy track is never a factor. And because the horses aren't racing against themselves, it's important for that track surface to be the same from day to day and from morning till afternoon. And with the weather, starting sometimes cooler days in the morning and warmer in the afternoons, there's never a perfect way to maintain that track, but we've got it to the point where we can manage the track, and that track has been, very beneficial for the horses. It's been a very safe track. It does play quick, as noted by the times, but it is kind to the horses, and I think it gives everybody a chance to showcase their horses. So I think that was one of the biggest things since I've been here that we did. The one thing that I always tell somebody is that during the races, we know who wins the race. At the finish line, photo finish determines the winner, and whether they went 6 furlongs in 109 and change or 111 and change, it doesn't really matter. The winner's the winner. Here, because they're going individually, we need to try and keep that track as similar as possible throughout the days and throughout the time of the day. And, it's not a perfect science by any means, but we're managing it well. And, we certainly can't change the way Mother Nature is going to have the wind blowing. But I do think that has been very helpful to us. And over the long haul, it's been a very good surface for us. And also, these horses go off of this track and they perform anywhere. They perform on the dirt, they perform on the turf, they perform at the highest levels of the game. So I think it gives the buyer an opportunity to see their horses in a very good condition, and then they can add that to their evaluation.
Are digital sales something OBS will have more of in the future?
It is. So we've dipped our toe in the water with the digital sales, and we've been working on it in the background for a while. And the time sales, we've had online bidding since, I think, all the sales companies since the pandemic. We kind of were forced into fast tracking the online bid, the ability to bid online. And after the pandemic, we were actually the first sales company in the U.S. to have online bidding during a live sale. And that was almost a mandate rather than a choice. I think all of the companies were pondering the best way to move forward with the online bidding. Obviously, when you're buying a horse, someone along the way needs to look at that horse and evaluate that horse. So you need to have somebody to evaluate and give the proper review of the horse. So the online bidding is a part of the process, and we've always accommodated phone bids and things like that. But oftentimes you will have an agent here and maybe the principal is not here with them, and rather than go through us, they'll communicate, while the horse is in the ring, and you'll see a lot of people on the phone here. But back to your question on the digital sales, the time sales, we had a time sale after the October sale because Mother Nature, again, wasn't very kind to us in October. We had to deal with hurricane threats. We didn't, fortunately, as it turned out, there wasn't any serious issues. We did have to delay the start of the sale. But the sale was not a great sale. We were able to sell some horses, but we thought, let's get this digital sale and let's try it and give the people that had horses in that sale an opportunity to sell them if they didn't sell them in the ring. So we thought that was a good way to try it. It gave us a way to test some of the processes out for the time sales, and we're looking to get a little more active in that arena.
And what are some of the OBS graduates who have made a mark?
So it goes back a long ways. There's a lot of Breeders' Cup winners and champions and millionaires, and you can go, way back, to Skip Away or further back to Brave Raj and Lost Code and horses that, are not going to be on the tip of people's tongues. Silver Charm, Kentucky Derby winners, and horses like that. I'll have another was a little more recent, but one of the greatest horses that we've sold was Into Mischief, and he was a good racehorse. He didn't have a long career, but he certainly has had a long career at stud and has been a generational type sire, and he's probably at the top of the list from our March sale. Current horses coming out of the March sale, we have White Abario, who won the Breeders' Cup, who won the Pegasus. He's certainly at the top of the class, and we've got 4 other Grade 1 winners on the cover for this sale. We've got Gaming, we've got Muth, who's now at stud. We have Scottish Lassie, who was another top 2-year-old last year, and I Scream, You Scream, a good turf horse running out in California. But deeper and beyond that, I think what's important is that these sales, the 2-year-old sales in general, have been very productive at all levels in terms of statistically have shown that they start more often, they win more often, and so sometimes the perception is that the 2-year-old sales process is one that might be a little tough on the horses, but it's actually the opposite. So the perception isn't accurate, and we have stats that we didn't tailor to our convenience, to our needs. The Equine Line and Jockey Club provided us the statistics, and it's over a 10-year period, and then separately we did another one over a 5-year period, and consistently the 2-year-old sales have produced runners at all levels, and winners, average earnings, pick a statistic, stakes percentages, they're all higher than, horses that sold last as a yearling or a weanling. So not anything negative to the selling a horse as a yearling or a weanling. It's just more of a positive and a reinforcement that the 2-year-old sales process is good for the horse. And the people that are selling 2-year-olds are the same people that are breaking and training horses for some of the best owners in the country. Forte, Ocala Stud had back-to-back 2-year-old champions. And, Ocala Stud, one of the original shareholders in OBS, have been doing it. They're going on, which is amazing. They're going on their 70th year. Incredible group of horsemen in Ocala. And I think that's sometimes you get a negative perception, and it's really not statistically backed. And I think it's important to recognize that the 2-year-old sales, they're very productive in terms of producing top horses year in and year out, but also that the horsemen that are participating at the sales are those same horsemen that are developing horses that were bought for yearlings or homebreds that go on and become very top horses. There's one horse, actually is frustrating from my end, but Gunrunner, who's probably right up there as the top stallions in the world. Gunrunner was in our April sale, and Niall Brennan had him. He worked here and he worked well, and he was a late scratch. He actually got scratched, and a portion of the horse got sold. So we could kind of call him an OBS graduate, but I'm just emphasizing the fact that the horses that come out of the sale, go on to great careers.
Well, awesome. Thank you for your time, and best of luck with the sale.
Well, thank you. We hope we have a good 3 days, and then we've got another 1,200 more to sell in April.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks to Olivia and all the folks down there at the OBS sales. Looks like everything's going great, and they'll get everything back on track, man. It's so difficult in our sport. I tell people, my friends especially, who are like, "Oh, you got into horse racing? How did that? Blah, blah, blah. What's it like?" And I'm like, "It's a little like college football. You just gotta check out the weather report and just go. You just gotta go do the tailgate, hang out, do the thing."
Okay.
Sean Collins, Louie, bro, hanging out with you. Of course, another episode of BloodHorse Monday. The Virginia Derby, the inaugural version, is on Saturday. Okay, so real question for you, young Sean Collins. We've got this road to the Derby. We've got these 50-pointers. We've got these 100-pointers. 100-pointer in the Jeff Ruby on the synthetic, or a 1-turn mile and an eighth as a 50-pointer. We get 3 Derby runners out of these 2 races. Is this a good thing, or are you indifferent? How does Sean Collins feel about that?
I'm indifferent until I see who qualifies. I mean, you can't argue with the Jeff Ruby anymore, I don't think.
No,
that has proven to be, even though it's on the synthetic, that has proven the last couple of years that is a legit Derby prep race. But yeah, the 1-turn mile and an eighth, this is going to be really interesting.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, this could be like a precedent setter for the future. I don't really know how I'm going to analyze this. I guess we'll see what happens on Saturday, but I don't know how I'm going to really kind of analyze that. And on top of that, you're 7 weeks out from the Derby, so you're kind of in that limbo where the horse might not come back for another start.
Well,
so
it is fascinating because we do see in other places. We saw Tis the Law, for example. I thought about this in 2020. Win a mile and an eighth Belmont over 1 turn.
Yeah.
And then come back in the Kentucky Derby and run really well a month later.
That's true.
Now, I know that was, July August, then September. And then, of course, we go to Baltimore to run the previous.
Belmont was at the end of June.
Okay, it was June. Okay, my brain was telling me June. And so I was trying to figure out in my head if there was a precedent for this sort of thing. And we've seen it. We've absolutely seen it where there is the Tis the Law example, at least, where he ran in that very short Belmont and then ran really well when he got to the Derby itself. So I think there's at least a little bit of precedent here. We see some returnees in this race that I think are pretty interesting. Standing out, of course, is Getaway Car. Coming in for Bob Baffert, shipping all the way across the country. You know what's incredible is actually this will be his first stake starter at a CDI track. Since obviously Barnes won his maiden race at Churchill Downs in the fall. That was kind of the everybody shake hands, how we doing sort of moment. Of course, this will be the first stakes runner that he's going to have at a Churchill Downs track. What do you think about Getaway Car being in this spot? I like him very much over one turn.
Yeah. It's interesting because originally the plan was to send Gaming out here from the Baffert barn, and then he ended up getting a fever the morning of entry. So they went with Getaway Car as the backup plan. I kind of like the backup plan a little bit better. I think this race kind of fits Getaway Car, because this is the interesting part of the 1 turn mile and an eighth. I think it's going to potentially set itself up to be an easier time for the front runners than if this was around 2 turns. So I think this is going to set up great for him. He gets Irad Ortiz in the saddle. That's definitely, obviously Juan Hernandez is a very good jockey, but you can't argue having Irad Ortiz in your saddle. And, he's going to be aggressive. He's going to go for that lead. And he showed last time in the Sunland Park Derby, it's the Sunland Park Derby, but he showed he can dig down, he can fight for that victory. And so I really like him in this spot. I think this is a good opportunity for him.
I think it is too. I think that Sunland Derby with him and Caldera, of course, out of the Lucas barn. I thought that was actually an underrated race. I think both horses looked a little green, which is funny, but I think it was more just the layoff than anything. We're second in the form cycle here if he travels well.
Are we going to get the Lucas fight again from American Promise?
Okay.
Is it going to be Baffert versus Lucas again?
It's a fair question because American Promise comes in as the 3-horse there. Nick Juarez up to ride, of course, for Wade Lucas in this spot. Comes out of that Risen Star, really, really disappointing one, as was the Southwest. I think this is as much about getting to a 1 turn type of race than anything else, because look, and who am I to question Bill Mott? I mean, Bill Mott, Wayne Lucas. I mean, what do we, or Bill Mott?
Don't be questioning any of those guys.
Right. Hey, Louie, back off. But this also, gosh, who was his runner that won on the Oaks Trail in Oakland last year?
Lemon Muffin.
Yeah. American Promise kind of feels like Lemon Muffin. Like Lucas wants it to happen, but I'm just not sure it's going to happen. Might be.
But hey, he still got Lemon Muffin in the Oaks.
He does. I want to make a prediction for this race. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. I think Studley Do Right runs in this race. I think he finishes 5th. And then I think we see him in the Federico Tessio and then in the Preakness.
I could see that happening.
Because I think he's going to do the Mid-Atlantic thing from here on out. It didn't work in the Battaglia.
He's been really good in the Mid-Atlantic.
He's very good in the Mid-Atlantic. Yeah. That's exactly right.
That's why I kind of like him on Saturday for that reason.
Okay.
It's if he's going to have a bounce back race, I feel like this is going to be it.
And especially the 1 turner, he was good in the Remsen, if people remember, actually over the mile and an eighth. So it's not as though it's completely unheard of. He did win the Nashua going a 1 turn mile at Aqueduct. So this does make sense for him.
The precedent's there
as a spot.
If there was a race on the Derby Trail where he was going to be successful, this is the race I would expect it to happen.
This one, or maybe what's the word before the Gotham? The Gotham. It's at a mile, right? Yeah,
yep.
Like the Gotham would have been the one that would have stood out as well. Rapture's in here for Brad Cox. We're getting hard to know if John Hancock's going to be in the spot because we've heard his name attached to other ones.
Yeah,
essentially is that. If John Hancock's in here, how do you feel about him?
I like him.
Okay,
if he's in this spot, I mean, you just saw Owen Almighty come back and run huge at Tampa this weekend. We talked with Michael about Poster, who was behind them. They're really high on that horse. And so I think if John Hancock runs, I think he's the horse to beat.
Okay.
I think it's still possible Getaway Car is going to, be the favorite when all's said and done. But I think John Hancock is kind of the, he's the up and coming horse. He's undefeated. A lot of people are going to kind of lean towards that. So I would think he's the horse to beat. But I think both he and Getaway Car could be the 2 pace horses.
Right.
And if there's 2 Brad Cox horses, they're both owned by Winstar and CHC in this race between John Hancock and Rapture.
Right.
I can't imagine both of them are going to let Getaway Car just go. So because of that, I think Rapture is the one who's going to be sitting 3rd right behind them. And I think he's the one that's probably got the most upside.
This is
in
where
that scenario.
It's interesting with Rapture because he's only run twice, but he ran the exact same race twice. He ran second, and then in the second one happened to overtake his rival at a mile and a 16.
Looked pretty good doing it.
And looked just fine doing it. That's exactly right. And so I wonder, even with him being listed here, Flavia Pratt's listed as Rapture and not as John Hancock.
That to me tells me, you never know what actually the conversation was, whether that was predetermined, whether that is we're expecting to not run John Hancock in this race, but if we do, we're going to put you on the one that we know is running. So you don't know what the actual conversation was, but I always see something like that and think jockey had a choice and he picked that one. How do you feel on that?
I totally feel that way. I think it might be, even in this case, an example of them showing us that that's the horse that's going to run and just listing Mike Smith aboard on the
Yeah.
other. I think that's a real possibility.
Yeah.
In this case, render judgments in here. Any thought, Kenny McPeak?
I really liked him as a 2-year-old last year, and he hasn't run too well in the prep races yet. But so I am interested in seeing him run this 1-turn mile and an eighth. I'm wondering if that's going to maybe have a difference in him. But I did really like him last year as a 2-year-old, and hopefully, he's going to kind of get back on that game. And one of the other horses that I've liked so far, kind of one of my quiet choices for, hitting the trifecta and the superfecta and the Derby, if he gets there, is Omaha.
Okay.
I've been liking this horse on the New York Trail. He hasn't really gotten that much of a pace to run into, especially in the last race in the Withers. And he's still been able to close. I think if the pace is hot for him in this race, you could see where he's maybe a threat to win. But every year I always look for that horse in the Kentucky Derby that's kind of the long shot, deep closer that I always try to put in that trifecta and that superfecta spot. Obviously, I have not hit that very often, so I don't know how good of a strategy this is. But that might be for the other horses that I'm putting in those than my long shot play. But he's one of those horses I have an eye on, as we'll see how he does in this race. But if he can sneak into the Derby, I do like him to pick up some of those pieces late.
Omaha, of course, the son of Audible. Do you get that joke?
Yes, Peyton Manning.
Very good. This show was over if you didn't. Just wanted to warn you. We were done doing this forever if you didn't. I think Authentic Gallop's interesting in this spot, in this race as well. Son of Authentic, not a son of Gallop. And just certain people that I trust when we get to this time of year with 3-year-olds, and Tom Amos is one of those.
Yeah.
He just is, right? And so it's just one of those guys. Javier Castellano in to ride?
That definitely caught my attention.
I don't hate that in graded stakes. I think a lot of that guy graded stakes, frankly.
Yeah.
And so with a Javier Castellano in as well,
it's going to be a good race.
He's already won twice as well. This is the thing too. Both of his wins are in his last 3 races. So he wins his maiden, goes against winners the first time, finishes third, goes ahead and closes this last time, running in that second, third, fourth kind of spot. He's going to be another one that's going to be sitting just off the pace, almost certainly with Rapture. I think he's a fascinating entry here. And I think that a guy like Javier Castellano, he's going to be good in the stretch, man.
When you see a horse like him, where it took several tries to break the maiden, and then, like you said, he comes back, he breaks the maiden, and he runs well enough against allowance horses, and then comes back and wins an allowance race. That to me just signals he's a horse that's finally putting it together and developing. So if he pulls the upset, I won't be shocked this weekend. It's a good race. Colonial Downs, for the first running of this race, all the effort that they've put into getting this race ready to go, getting their 3-day spring meet, I think they got to be happy with the field that they came up with, because this is a pretty contentious field.
I'm really hoping moving forward, as horse racing recalibrates itself as to what the circuits are. Right. Yeah. They're not just state circuits anymore. We've got regional circuits now.
And you see that with Maryland kind of adjusting.
This is what I'm hoping is, we see the Maryland schedule in the summer with Colonial, right? And allowing folks to go back and forth. My real hope is that we get some kind of symbiosis between that Virginia program and that Maryland program. And it just grows and grows and grows. Frankly, because of how close they are, it would be fun if there was some kind of Preakness, Virginia, in the spring, or in the fall. Like that could be pretty fun, like a double that way or something like that. I don't know if they got space for another 3-year-old race or something like that, but as we move forward, and there seems to be a real sense, we saw it with decoupling in Florida, how we can actually do things together in this sport, right? Like organizations from different places can get along. Hopefully we'll see Virginia, Maryland move alongside and in tandem together moving forward. But yeah, Virginia Derby on Saturday will end the 50-point races. As you heard with Michael, the Jeff Ruby Stakes is the next weekend alongside the Louisiana Derby. There's usually a fun Bayou, what do they call that? Bayou,
the Bayou Bluegrass.
Couple. Yeah, the circus there. So we'll be there as well. Sean and I will both be at the Jeff Ruby Stakes. Sean's heading down for the Virginia Derby. And then TBD the weekend after. We're trying to make Arkansas happen for you. I'll be at the Wood Memorial at the beginning of April. Sean will be at the Bluegrass at Keeneland, and then I think we'll both be at the Lexington the weekend after.
Yes. Yeah. It's that exciting time of year.
It is, man. And look, it's one thing to say the last 50-point race. It's going to be another one next week when we sit down on this show and say, hey, we're previewing 100-point races.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
It is cool,
We're
man.
Getting close. We're getting close.
Getting close indeed. His name is Sean. I'm Louie. This has been BloodHorse Monday for March 10th, 2025. We thank our friends at the OBS sale for hanging out with us again. They are going March 11, 12, and 13 this week. So make sure you are tuned in, catch all their stuff online. They've got a very easy to find website. And of course, bloodhorse.com, your source for everything. We appreciate Olivia. Of course, Michael Banahan from Godolphin as well. For Sean, I'm Louie. We'll see you next week here on BloodHorse Monday.
The Blood Horse is dedicated to the improvement of thoroughbred breeding and racing for over 100 years. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and save BloodHorse Monday on all your platforms. For the latest news, analysis, and insights, visit us at bloodhorse.com.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.